Hello and welcome to Send Me. My name is Becky Murray and I'm the founder of an organisation called One by One. Our heart is simple: to end exploitation of the vulnerable around the world. Well, throughout this series, I want to look at different aspects in terms of how we walk out saying, "Here I am, send me." The prophet Isaiah declares these words when Jesus comes and says, "Whom can I send? Who will go for us?" And Isaiah throws himself in with this abandonment that I just love. He wholeheartedly throws himself in saying, "Here am I, send me." And the truth is, God is still looking to and fro on this earth to see who he can choose, who can he send. And he's looking for people who will follow him wholeheartedly, people who are completely in love with Jesus and want to be his hands and feet on the world today. And that takes on many different aspects. For some, that looks like world missions, going to different parts of the world and working in remote different regions. For you, it may be working in the business place, in the marketplace, in politics, in whatever way it is that God's got a plan and a purpose for your life. You know, I want to speak to you who raise your children. So many times the world will say, "Well, what are you doing with your life?" Let me tell you, when you're raising your children, you are raising the next generation to be passionate followers of Jesus. That's not something to be belittled or looked down on. That is an incredible and powerful calling, that you get to raise your children whole and healthy and well. And that's incredible. So let no one look down on you for what you do. God's got a plan and a purpose for every single one of us. The challenge is, will we respond like Isaiah, saying, "Here I am, send me"? Well, today I want to focus on a message that I've called, "Is the Price Right?" Several years ago, my sister was actually on a TV show called The Price is Right. And this was an old show that aired both across America and England. And I think it started in the 1980s. And it's where contestants come on, and there's normally 4 contestants on each round. And they'll be shown different objects, different articles, and they've got to guess the value of those articles. And the person who gets closest to the retail value actually wins that product. Well, my sister was so excited because back in the early 2000s, we went to go and watch the show. We were just going to be part of the audience. And sure enough, my sister was called on to be one of the contestants. So that's her claim to fame, that she was on The Price is Right. If I remember rightly, she didn't actually win anything, which was quite tragic. But some people went on to win incredible things, from cruises around the world or cars even, right down to a simple kettle or teapot. But contestants had to guess the value of an item. Well, many times contestants were way off the mark. They either really overpriced it or they really undervalued it. And the truth is, sometimes we can do the same in our lives too. We can overestimate certain parts of our life and we put so much attention onto those areas, whilst other areas we don't see as quite so valuable, and so we neglect those areas. Sometimes we get it right, other times we may get it wrong. And so I want today to look at a person in the Old Testament who really got it wrong. They undervalued something that was incredibly precious and they sold out for a very cheap price. And in doing so, they missed something incredible for not just them, but their whole family heritage line. And I want to share this with you because I want us to focus on what's eternal in our lives so that we won't sell out and get the price wrong. So I want to look with you at the life of Esau. Now, Esau and Jacob, is this incredible family dynamic going on that we read on in Genesis chapter 25. So let me read a few verses with you. Now, forgive me because this is a longer reading, but basically Isaac has prayed over Rebecca. Rebecca couldn't conceive for a long while, so Isaac prays over her because she's barren. And finally she begins to conceive and she has twins inside her. But throughout her pregnancy, she can feel the boys wrestling within her. And so she goes to the Lord to see, what is going on? What's happening inside my womb? What's going on with these children? So Genesis, chapter 25, and I'm going to pick it up from verse 23. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. So when her days were fulfilled for her to give birth, indeed there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over, and so they called him Esau. Afterward, his brother came out, and he took hold of Esau's heel, and so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. So the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunterman, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man, dwelling in the tents. And Isaac loved Esau, but he ate of his game. But Rebekah loved Jacob. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field and was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me with that red stew, for I am weary." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die. What is this birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." And so he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And then Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. He ate it and drank, arose and went his way. Therefore Esau despised his birthright. This is an incredible scripture where someone sells out an incredible birthright for a bowl of stew. Talk about not getting the price right. So Esau comes along and he's hungry, he's been working out in the field, and he's got this incredible birthright. Now, a birthright wasn't just about in terms of inheriting physical products. It's not just about getting an extra portion of land or gaining more cattle, as much as that was part of the deal of being the firstborn, as it were. But a birthright is an incredible honour. You see, God is a God of families. God is a God of generations of families. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and by tradition, it would have then said Esau. But because of this simple moment of selling out his birthright for a bowl of stew, for the whole rest of history, it becomes the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See, Esau couldn't quite get how valuable this birthright was, and so he sold it out simply for a bowl of stew. What a tragic moment. He was so focused on the here and now that he couldn't see the value of this in terms of eternity. You see, Jesus was going to come through this line. Jesus was coming through this next descendant. And so instead of being an ancestor of Esau, he was an ancestor of Jacob because of a tragic moment where he sold out something incredibly precious because he couldn't quite determine its value. And so Esau sells out for a very cheap price. Now, Jacob in all this is not innocent. Now, you carry on reading and gosh, what family dynamics they go on to have. So years later on, as Isaac's about to die, there comes the incredible moment of the passing on of a blessing to the next generation. And Isaac, by this point, is almost blind. His eyes are totally failing him. And it comes to his last few days. And so Rebekah hears him having a conversation with his son, who he sends out to go get an incredible game for him to eat. And so Esau goes out to go and catch this animal for his father to eat. Rebekah overhears this, and so she says to Jacob, who is her favourite child, "Okay, you need to cook your dad's favourite meal, then go put a hairy garment on so that you feel like Esau, and then come in and serve it to your dad so that he will give you the blessing." So Jacob, who's already stole the birthright at this point, then goes on and does as his mum suggests. He cooks this beautiful meal, takes it into Isaac. He's covered himself so that he feels like Esau. And he goes in and gives the meal to Isaac. And Isaac recognises that the voice is different, that it's not the voice of Esau. And so he says, come close. And he suddenly feels him and realises, oh, this must be Esau. It feels like Esau. I can feel the hair of Esau. And Jacob tricks Isaac into giving him the blessing. And so Esau comes back in, having caught the game, and he cooks it all up, he prepares it all. He comes in to give it to his father. Jacob's literally just walked out of the room as he walks in with it. And he says, "Okay, Dad, give me the blessing." And Isaac says, "Who is this? I've just given the blessing to my firstborn." And suddenly Esau realizes that not only did he sell out his birthright, but he's now being deceived out of the blessing of his father too. This incredible crushing moment for him. And you thought your family dynamics were interesting. The family dynamics in this situation, oh my goodness. If God can come through for them, guess what? He can come through for you, no matter what chaos is going on in your family right now. And so Esau and Jacob have this wrestling that's gone on from within the womb and continues long after. But what I want to focus on is how Esau sold out. You see, we're going to go through moments in our lives where we have decisions. We can either make compromises or we can stand firm on what it is we believe God's got for us. And sometimes the compromises may be tempting. It may be tempting to sell out certain aspects of your life or of your character even in order to gain something. Let me tell you, in the light of eternity, it's not worth selling out. And so I want to look on what Esau did wrong in order that we can learn from it and not make the same mistakes in our lives. So firstly, Esau is fixed on immediate gratification. You see, he turns to his brother, he walks in, he's been out hunting for several hours, he walks in and he is hungry. And he walks in and he smells this beautiful lentil stew cooking. And he walks in and, I'm sure we've all been in that place where I've had so many times where I've walked into a restaurant and thought, I'm not actually that hungry yet. And then as soon as I walk in, I smell the food and it's, oh yes, now I'm hungry. I smell it, I want it. And Esau in this moment walked in from the field, been out hunting for hours, and he walks in and smells his brother's stew. And oh my gosh, it smelled so good. And so Esau says, give me the stew. And Jacob, who's very quick to pick up on opportunities, says, okay, well, give me your birthright and then I'll give you the stew. Now Esau in that moment was thinking, what use is a birthright if I'm about to die? Right now in this moment, I need food and I need it now. And he is willing to sell out on something in his future in order to gratify his immediate moment. See, the truth is, in this moment, it wasn't a life and death situation. Esau may have thought it was, but it wasn't. He walked in from the field hungry. Maybe he even felt faint. I have times where my blood sugars begin to go a little crazy. I'm not diabetic, but my blood sugars can drop sometimes, and I know I need to eat something quickly to pick me back up. Maybe Esau was in this moment where he felt faint and he needed something quickly because he'd been working out in the field for hours and he's hungry and he needs substance now. But it wasn't a life and death situation. This wasn't a moment where it was worth selling out his birthright. He was so focused on the physical and on the now that he sold out what was eternal and what was truly valuable. Jesus should have come from his birthright, should have come from his family heritage line, but instead he sells out for a bowl of stew. You know, we may think of Esau and think, oh, Esau, how foolish were you? But when you really consider how many times have we been tempted by moments, maybe you've had a job offer and it comes with a better wage packet and it comes with all these perks and it's so tempting to go for that job offer because it looks better in the here and the now. But in the long term, what it's really going to do is rob you from hours of watching your family grow up. It's going to take you away from your family home for years to come. What's really worth investing your time and your life into? Don't sell out like Esau did. Don't make a compromise on something that is so valuable. Don't become so fixated on immediate gratification that we miss what has an eternal value in our life. You see, Esau traded the eternal for the temporal. He traded the spiritual for the physical. And he traded the unseen for the seen. Don't fall into that same pitfall. So firstly, we see from Esau, he was fixed on immediate gratification. The second thing was that he was so fixated on the physical, he missed the spiritual. You see, we carry on reading in scripture that Esau went on to become an incredibly wealthy person. If you read in Genesis chapter 36 and verse 6 and 7, this is what it describes about Esau. It says, then Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the persons in his household, his cattle and all the animals and all his goods which he gained in the land of Canaan. And he went to a country away from the presence of his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too great for them to dwell together, and the land where they were strangers could not support them because of their livestock. So it wasn't like because Esau sold his birthright, it didn't mean he now went on to be poor. He still went on to be incredibly wealthy and he'll have a lot of physical, material possessions. But Esau was so fixed on that he couldn't see what he lost when he sold his birthright. The birthright was so much more than just physical possessions. This was his whole inheritance for families and generations to come. It had a true value that was spiritual. And he sold out for a bowl of stew. Although he went on to be incredibly wealthy, he'd actually lost so much. In Hebrews 12 verse 16 it says, "See that no one is sexually immoral or godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance as the oldest son." He was immoral and he lacked concern for the future. He had no consideration for his sons and his children's children. In that act, in that moment of selling out, he sold out not only for himself, but actually for generations to come, because he couldn't see beyond the here and now. How many times can we fall into this pitfall? We're so focused on today. What's going to be good for me today? What's going to work out well for my family or for my finances or what I'm going to do in my employment today? And we've become so fixated on the here and now that we miss the light of eternity. In the light of eternity, nothing is worth withholding from Christ. Nothing is worth holding back. A few weeks ago, we talked about striking the ground and how the king held back arrows in his quiver. And in the same way, you and I can hold things back. We hold on to what we think, well, I might need this for a rainy day. So I'll give God my tithe, but I don't want to give over and above my 10% because, well, I need to save up for me and I need to be wise for today. And Esau did the same. He was only bothered about the here and now and sold out for what his future and eternal value. So many times he lived in the present rather than focusing on what was to come. In Mark chapter 8 and verse 36, it says this: "What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul?" You know, nothing is worth selling out in terms of your eternity. Nothing is worth selling out in terms of the impact you can also make on eternity. You see, this whole series is called Send Me. It's looking at the words from the prophet Isaiah saying, "Here I am, send me." And sometimes the send me moments are going to cost you something. In the here and now, it's going to cost you your time. Sometimes it costs you your finances. Other times it may even cost you your health in certain situations. But to not go all out, wholeheartedly serving God, in the same way you lose so much more. In the light of eternity, it's not the right price. Don't sell out for a bowl of stew. Don't hold back and reduce what God wants to do in and through your life. I heard a story several years ago. I believe it's a made-up story, but it was written by a Danish Christian philosopher. And he talks about a jewelry store. And this jewelry store sold lots of different types of jewelry. So they sold the real high-end stuff with the diamonds and rubies and valuable jewels that cost thousands upon thousands. But equally in this jewelry store, they also sold costume jewelry. This was the cheap stuff that cost maybe £2, £3, £4, really cheap stuff. Well, one particular night, a group of burglars come in. And they managed to get into the shop without breaking any windows, and they managed to pick up the lock and sneak their way in. But they did something really intriguing. Rather than stealing the jewellery, they simply changed around the price tags. And so diamonds that should cost tens of thousands of pounds, they marked up for just £5. Meanwhile, costume jewellery that was literally worth £2, £3, they put the £1,000 price tags and they switched around all the price tags. They then managed to get out of the store and lock the door behind them so that when the staff came in the following day, they couldn't tell any difference. Nothing looked out of place, nothing had been taken, and so everything was fine. And so that very next day, the thieves were able to come in and purchase valuable, precious gems for just a few pounds. Meanwhile, other people walked in who had lots of money and spent thousands of pounds on cheap junk. Now, this was just a story. I don't know if that ever even happened, but that story makes me realise what so often we really do through our lives. You see, our day and generation will tell you to put great value on material products. Have you got the most expensive handbag? Have you got the latest mobile phone on the market? If you've got a mobile phone from several years ago, well, what are you doing? There's been several upgrades since then. And it's really important that you wear the designer labels and that you've got the latest gadgets. And we put so much concern on fashion, on material wealth, on possessions, and on things that really, in the light of eternity, is just cheap junk. Meanwhile, we'll sell out precious time with our families. We'll sell out walking in our God-given passions to get a better job that was paying more. We'll sell out cheap things. We'll sell out eternal things in order to get the here and now and temporary. So many times we fall into the exact same trap as Esau. We're willing to sell out for a bowl of stew. I want to encourage you to consider where you're investing your time. Where are you making the investments in your life? Are you investing into your family? Are you investing into your walk with Jesus Christ? Are you investing into what you believe God's asked you to do? You know, to really cry, "Here I am, send me," is going to cost you, but it's not worth withholding from Him in the light of eternity. Please don't fall into the trap that Esau did. I want to finish with these words from Jesus. In Matthew chapter 6 and verse 19 to 20, it says this: "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves can break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." Are you putting high priority on something that's temporal? Meanwhile, your eternal walk with Jesus, well, that's secondary. How many times have we had days where we rush into the day because we've got so much to achieve that day? We're so busy. We've got so many items on our jobs list that we've got to rush into the day. And so we rush in saying, "Okay, God, well, I'll pick up your word tomorrow because I've not got time to read it today. I'm just going to rush on." And then day after day of busy days, before we know it, it's been months before we picked up our Bibles. Let me tell you, do not sell out the eternal for the temporal, but make sure your priorities are set, that you're really establishing value on what is truly eternally valuable in your life. Don't sell out for the temporal. Make sure the price is right. Well, I want to share a video with you now about our work in Afghanistan. So throughout the years, one by one, has been working with people who are vulnerable around the world. And this led us to working in Pakistan. And over the years of working in Pakistan, we've now moved and we've got a second restorative care facility in the north, right alongside the Afghanistan border. Now, many of you have been watching the news over the last few months now about the Afghanistan and Taliban regime taking over control. We're seeing atrocities upon atrocities on our news channels. Well, this came close to home for us recently. Due to our home in the north, it's right on the Afghanistan border. It's not something we talk publicly about very often at all. But as a result of being there, hands and feet on the ground, we're now having many refugees coming in our care. And these are people who we can't turn away. These are vulnerable people who without help will go on to be exploited. And so we wanted to reach out and love these people in a very real and practical way. Please watch this video with me. Thank you. If you'd like more information about the work we do, whether it's the work out in Afghanistan helping refugees, or whether it's any of our work around the world, then please go to the website onebyone.net. We would love to have you involved with us. You know, we need an army of people to work alongside us to really reach out to the vulnerable in order to put an end to exploitation. You know, sometimes it just takes all hands on deck, people working together, the army of God working together in order to see life set free. If you're able to help us, maybe that looks like sponsoring a child. Maybe that looks like coming out on the mission field with us. Maybe it looks like going to the website, seeing what we're doing, and then taking it to the Father in prayer. We need you alongside us. So please make sure you visit onebyone.net today. Well, it's been an honour to share with you. Please remember, in and through your life, we serve an eternal purpose in and through our lives. If we're really to be like the prophet Isaiah saying, "Here I am, send me," then it's going to take a wholehearted, determined follower of Jesus Christ, that we won't sell out. So many times the value of life determined by the world is put on fame or beauty or possessions. In reality, that's all cheap junk in comparison to the eternal value that God has got upon your life and what he wants to do in and through your life. A few years ago, I wrote a book called Embrace the Journey, and it shares lots of different stories of going around the world, moments where we had to make decisions, and it was a case of, do we go all out or do we hold back, because certain decisions were harder. Well, if you want to read what happened, then please grab a hold of the copy of that book today, where you can see how God maneuvered in so many different ways around the world over the years. And I pray that that will inspire and challenge you to still walk out in your God-given calling as well. Well, as always, I pray you'll join with me again next week, when I'm so excited to share what God's put on my heart for you. I'll see you then.